is Ayelet. I am the mother of a 2-year-old and an 8-month-old. You might hear them outside. They're playing outside with my mom. So I decided to take this quick moment to record a little review of the Toniebox versus the Yoto. This is a question I get asked a lot, so I thought I would jump in and talk a bit about our experience with these two devices. On this channel, I share about Montessori, motherhood in general, respectful parenting, so all sorts of things like that. So today I wanted to talk about the Yoto versus the Toniebox because I get asked this all the time. We have had the Toniebox since my 2-year-old turned a year old, and we got the Yoto before our most recent trip. So we took a trip in June of this year, and we got it right before the trip because I wanted something smaller. We brought our Toniebox on a trip back in November. This was large to bring around, and we were trying to pack light this time. So I wanted to give a little brief overview of the two devices, our pros, cons, our experience with the two of them. So I'll start from the outset. We have enjoyed both of them. I wouldn't say either is a bad buy. I'd say both can be really good depending on your circumstances. For us, for my son, he's about 2.5, he really uses both. When he first got it though, we got him the Toniebox at a year. He could use this immediately, and I don't think he would have been ready for this for several months. So a little bit about the two devices. So Toniebox is this size, and it works with these little figurines. So this is the one that it comes with, is this Playtime puppy. You can get it coming with different figurines, but this is like the classic one. And how it works is you just put it on and it starts to play. I'm not gonna put it on because I think that's a copyright violation, but you just put it on top, it'll start to play. You adjust the volume by doing it up here or down here, and you can skip tracks and go backwards by hitting the sides. I will say, we never, ever, ever do that. I never skip tracks or go backwards. We just don't do that. I've not really showed my son how to do that. I don't really love the motion of it. I don't really want him banging on it. And when I was trying to do it, when we first bought it and I was trying to figure out how to do it, I did not find it super intuitive. So what we do is we put them on and we just listen to the music. So we have this one, for example, this is his sleep one. We put this on at night and it has sleep music. He loves that. So that is the Toniebox, what it looks like. Compared to, we have the Yoto Mini. So there are two Yotos. There's one that's about the same size as the Toniebox, and there's the Yoto Mini. So for us, we were getting it for travel. There was really no question about which one we would get out of the two Yotos. I mean, the whole reason we got the Yoto was for it being smaller for travel. So we got the Mini. And how the Mini works is it has these little cards. So this is actually an audiobook, and you just slip them in, sort of like your credit card slot. And it's about the weight of a credit card. So it's sturdy, but not as easy for a young toddler to use. So at a year old, like my son got it for his first birthday, definitely would not have been able to put that in. So one thing about the Yoto, I just put a card in when it was off and it did not turn on. So I don't think it automatically turns on to play when you put it on, versus with the Toniebox, if you put the figurine on and it's off, it will turn on and play. So that's just something to keep in mind, because as I was saying, my son was able to use the Toniebox when he was 12 months old. I think he really just hit a year, and I don't think he would have been with the Yoto, and that's another reason, is he wasn't pushing buttons, he was really just putting the figurine on. So anyway, how the Yoto works. So Yoto has dials for volume and for tracks. So this one goes forward and back on tracks and up and down on volume. And the button to turn it on is the side button. I think you need to push it. I should probably check that and make sure that I am not wrong on that. But I didn't seem to work when I just put the card in. So let me try again. Yeah. So here a card's in, but it's not on, it's not playing. So you do have to turn it on. So your toddler needs to be able to press that little button and sort of understand that in order to turn it on, versus just putting the figurine on the Toniebox. That said, I do find the mechanism for going back and forward way easier on the Yoto than on the Toniebox. Volume, I think, is about the same. It's a dial versus the ears. Both of them, you can control the volume from the app. So that's a bit about the devices. I would say the Toniebox is pretty darn durable. We've definitely had falls it has fallen downstairs before and it is perfectly fine. So I would say it's very durable. I don't know with a Yoto. Looking at it, we have this adventure jacket, which was an extra cost, but that's supposed to make it more durable. But looking at it, I would say it is likely less durable than the Toniebox. So I mentioned figurines versus cards. So, oh, actually first, before that, the price of these. Think that the Yoto is $69.99, Toniebox is $99.99. The bigger Yoto is, I think, 120 something, I want to say. So that's a bit about that price. So for $69.99, it does not come with any cards. $99.99 comes with Playtime Puppy, sometimes a different Tony if you prefer that. They have like specialized ones. Like I know there's like a Frozen one at Target, for example. Okay. So cards versus figurines. So one thing about figurines, easier to use for toddlers. However, way more to store. So we bought a bunch of these and it's just a lot to store. Not as easy for that versus these cards could just go in like a business card book or whatever like that. And I've seen people do that. But those are both the two options. The cards are cheaper. They vary a lot more in price. I think from like $5 to like $15. Maybe something in that range of variance versus these figurines are all about 15. So 15 to 20. So that's something to keep in mind. It is definitely cheaper to get the cards. Something interesting with the cards is how much they vary though in time on them. So this one is a children's book and it is, I think, 6 minutes long versus when we get books from the figurines, they always have songs in it, secondary stories and things like that. We have Elmer, Hungry Caterpillar, and they all sort of stay around the same length. I'd say the shortest I've seen is like 20 something minutes, but they're usually like half an hour to an hour long. So these vary a lot and the price does vary as well, but not really like equally to the amount of time that varies. Anyway, so that's a bit about the cards versus the figurines, personal preference for whoever. I do say that my son is more drawn to the figurines than the cards. He definitely like looks at that and pays attention to what he's choosing a lot more on those. But again, personal preference. So I mentioned this is the mini. The bigger Yoto, my understanding, has better speaker than the mini. It also has like a night light and an okay to wake light, some things like that. I personally don't need those features. So mini, again, was what I wanted. It also, so you'll notice they're both branded as screen-free devices, and I'd say they are. There is this little screen on the Yoto. And how this little screen, you'll see it's gonna say hi now. And it's like not like a phone screen or anything. I will say we have personally found it distracting. I think that's because I introduced a train story first. My son loves trains and he always wants a picture of a train on here and is not super satisfied with anything else being on there. So I'd prefer not to have this, but it makes it way easier if you are scrubbing through to find a different track because it'll have pictures on here. So again, as with all of us, I think both are great devices. It's really personal preference. So also, Yoto has Bluetooth. Toniebox does not have Bluetooth. So we have headphones and these are actually Tony's headphones, but we have these headphones. My son loves them. They work really well for him. They are corded, so they work on our Toniebox or our Yoto. You could use cord-free Bluetooth headphones with the Yoto, and you can also play music from like your phone or whatever, which I have done before. It's probably not my first preference just because that kind of takes over your phone when you're playing Bluetooth, but it works and it's great that it does that. One other thing to keep in mind of the differences of the two devices themselves is battery life. They're significantly different. I think this one I think is 6 hours. This one I think is 20 to 24 hours. So that's a huge difference in battery life. That said, this goes onto a dock. This is USB-C. I will tell you, we are way more likely in this house to have the Toniebox charged than the Yoto. So it is a way less battery life on the Toniebox, but we sort of store it on the base all the time, pretty much. And the Yoto, you have to actually plug in with USB-C. So because of that, yeah, we definitely, our Toniebox is always charged, and the Yoto I find dead quite a bit. So just something to keep in mind. Battery life different. So again, that's another reason why Yoto is probably your better option for on the go, especially the mini one. For on the go versus the Toniebox is really good at home, but is going to be a bit more of a pain on the go because you have to pack this big base and its battery life is not as long. So I think that's a bit about the differences between the devices, like very quick, like little overview of the differences. So the cards and versus figurines, another thing to keep in mind is that sort of availability of what there is, what's available. Cards have a lot more for older children. So if you have an elementary schooler or older, the cards on the Yoto are fantastic. There are longer stories. There are some that are 6 hours long that are true full-on audiobooks. Toniebox, on the other hand, these are all pretty short. I think the longest that any are is, an hour something. So they both also have a way to make your own. So it's make your own cards for Yoto, creative Tonies, and you can do it either on the app or the website. I've done it on the website for both of them just because that's where my music is on the website. I think I have also added to Tony from the app at one point. Yes. And I found both systems perfectly intuitive, really easy, no problem there. The thing with Yoto is you definitely have a lot more time available on there. I think you can put up to 100 tracks of an hour long each. Like that is a lot of audio, which obviously my child is not sitting and listening to all of that, but it is a lot of audio that can fit on one of these cards. Versus this is only 90 minutes. So we had a music album that we owned and we were putting on to both of them. It could fit on the Yoto one, it did not fit on the Tony one. So that's just something to keep in mind. I didn't really care because ultimately my son is not going and listening through full on that album, but it is something to keep in mind. Again, I thought both were really easy to use. You just need to own the audio, so you can't be using Libby or Apple Music or anything like that. It's just something you own, that you have an MP3 file to put on. Some people put stickers onto the front of the Yoto cards of their make their own, which I think is a great idea that I have not done yet. Tonies, they have different creative Tony figurines that look different, but they're not necessarily going to represent what you put on, though your child will obviously get used to it. So now for my which is better, what are my thoughts? So I have no regrets about having both of them. I felt like Toniebox was the right choice when I bought it. So I bought it when my son was 12 months old and it was the right choice. The Yoto would have been useless for him at the time, or it would have been basically just me doing it. Versus the Toniebox he could use really independently, and my goal is for him to be able to choose music because I'm not someone who naturally puts on music a lot. It's just, I tend to get kind of overstimulated by it, but so I don't choose to do it, but I do want my son to have the option of listening to music more. So I love that he could do it himself, starting in a year when we got this. Absolutely no regrets buying it. That said, the Yoto has been way better for travel. So we were able to buy both of them. I'm glad that I did. I felt like both were really great for our family. Now, I'd say if you have a young toddler, about a year, the Toniebox is what I would say is the right choice if you're buying for a young toddler. If you're buying for 2 or over, I might go for this one. This one works really well for the over 2 crowd. It's useful, it's very good for that age. And as they get older, there are more options for them. That's not to say there aren't good options for older kids on Toniebox. There's some National Geographic ones and things like that, and we actually did buy some, which brings me to my regret. My one regret is I bought a lot of figurines for the Tony when we first got it. I got excited, and I don't know that they have free shipping, and so I wanted to put multiples on so they got to free shipping. I think there's an order minimum. And also some limited edition ones, whatever. I bought a lot of them. That's my one regret, is I feel like we listened to Playtime Puppy, we listened to this sleep one, a creative one I set up, Hungry Caterpillar, and Elmer. That's basically all he listens to, and he does have a lot more, and I haven't even given him all of them. So instead of doing that, I would have then gotten Yoto and probably got more cards for it, just because it's easier to store the cards, they're cheaper, and all of that. So he still uses his Toniebox every night though, and he still loves it. And even though I've, given him the Yoto and showed him how to use it and all that, he definitely still gravitates towards his Toniebox, which might be that he likes the figurines, but it's probably just because it's what we had first. Because of that, my daughter's 8 months. When she turns a year, I'm probably going to get her another Tony. Just because I want one for her, and I don't think my son is interested in giving it up, which had been kind of my original plan, had been I'd get the Tony for my 1-year-old, and then when I had my next child, I would get the Yoto for my older child, and the younger one would have the Toniebox. I think that we are going to be adding it to her birthday list, and that'll be one of the things she's getting for her first birthday, because I think it's the perfect gift for a first birthday. One question I get a lot is about the age minimums. Both say that they are 3+. That's it. I don't think any of these are like, I put these through the toilet paper roll, it does not fit through. I think that they are safe in my opinion, and I feel comfortable. I think it's more of a liability thing, but that's everybody needs to decide for their own children. And both do say stuff that makes it, that I know Tony says, supervised under 3, which I mean makes sense. Like, yeah, supervise your child. I 100% agree with that. So I don't think it's actually 3+, like even though, I don't know if it says on here. I know it says 3+ places, but even though it says 3+, even on their website, FAQs, they say just supervise under 3. And Yoto, I know they have a section of audios for under 2s. So I think they also acknowledge that kids are using it under 2. So that's just something though, I've gotten a lot of questions. My kid is 1, my kid is 2. It says 3+, should I buy it? I mean, that is a personal preference for you. I personally feel very comfortable with it. And of course, supervise your child. And of course, you know what your child's ready for. So that's, I think, everything on my comparison. So again, both are great options. This is what I go with if you have a 1-year-old, and this is what I go with if your child is 2+. And if you're somewhere in between, I don't know. If your child does posting, this is a good option. Probably from like 18 months plus, I guess this is probably pretty good, because it also is going to be more like less concrete to find which one they're choosing for the picture. But if your child does posting with a card, so I used to do credit card, like old gift cards in a tissue box posting activity, and I think I have that in a video, so I'll link that. If your child can do that, they can probably do the Yoto, so you would know. And Toniebox, way easier for a young child. So that's my review. As I said, love both of them. Let me know down below if you have any questions, and I'm happy to give a little more information on any of those. So thank you so much for joining. Come back for more about Montessori, respectful parenting, motherhood in general, and I talk about some products sometimes. It's not my main focus, but I do sometimes talk about some of the products I get asked about a ton. So thank you so much for joining. Have a good one.